you love coming to BB Dev Days because you like to see what other people have been up to, what kind of code they've been doing, maybe some tips and tricks, some little hacks that they've been doing. And with that, I decided that it would be interesting, or it might be interesting, to show a few of the things that we here at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta have been doing with Luminate Online. So I'm going to go through my list of things that I intend to show today. So number one, create one-click donation forms in one quick step. If you've got a bunch of those one-click donation forms that are so nice for mobile checkout, you've set up a Blackbaud checkout for one-click forms, and you've got a bunch of donation forms that you want to create to correspond with existing regular donation forms, here is just a little trick to make that a lot quicker and easier. Number two, make discount codes in TeamRaiser case insensitive. I think that is pretty much self-explanatory. TeamRaiser discount codes by default are case sensitive, and that can cause some problems. So here's a quick little way to make those case insensitive. Number three will be to set up event include questions that display conditionally. And I think this is maybe the most complex of these three, and I think I would like to start with that one actually. Might be easier to show what I'm talking about than to try to describe. So in this example here, we've got a regular event registration page. And people can go to this page and register for an event, and often we'll have also a bunch of additional questions. In this example, my additional question here is, are you registering as a company? That's a common one we'll have. And if the person is registering as a company, then they'll want to fill out these additional questions. What's your company name? What's your street address, etc. If they're not registering as a company, then there's no need for them to fill out all this extra information. It would be nice if they could just come here and not see any of that and just click on next and go on. So trying to come up with a solution for that, and obviously we came up with one here, and I'm going to show you how we went about that. So let me go to the admin area of the event first. So in the event admin area, when you come down to this include questions step, I found out that for each of these questions, there is an ID number. So for example, for this, are you registering as a company? The ID number is 11263. Now, if you go back to this page again and look in the DOM inspector, I kind of expected and found what I expected, that somewhere in that element on the DOM, so in this input element, there is that number again, 11263 in the ID and also in the name of this particular element in the DOM. And it turns out that for most of the different kinds of questions that you can add, there is in the DOM, so that ID number shows up somewhere in the properties of that DOM element. So whether it's a radio button or a drop down or a text field here or a combo box, somewhere in the DOM, there is that ID number. So I figured with that information, we could take these DOM selectors and write some instructions to some JavaScript that would tell these DOM selectors to show or hide themselves, basically, according to what has been clicked or not selected. And it would be nice if we could, again, pull up the event admin area. If we could send some instructions to some other JavaScript that we will create that will kind of describe which elements here should be shown and which should be hidden. So in this edit ticket information area, I have written a little script here that basically sets up a variable called questions data. And that questions data is going to be an array of objects. In this particular example, I've just got the one object because I've just got the one question, the are you registering as a company question, but it could have more. So in this object, we're going to have a number of key value sets here that describe what should happen. So this key is a trigger question, and that's going to be the ID number that we just talked about, that 11263, which is the ID of the trigger question. So for example, are you registering as a company? This is the question that triggers the showing and hiding of these other questions. And that brings us to the questions that should be shown or hidden, which is going to be this value here. Show these, which is going to be an array of the ID numbers of all those values, of all those questions that will be shown or hidden, depending on whether this show vals, if a value in this array of values here in the show vals key is chosen. So in this case, it would be yes, I want to register as a company, or hidden if it's a value in one of the hide vals, so no. And then there's this optional value here called show at start, which is just going to tell this question here whether it should be shown right from the beginning as soon as somebody loads the page. And so that is what that will look like. Now, that's a pretty simple little example. So I'm going to show you one with just a few more steps to it. So this page here, I just kind of set up as an example. What kind of pet do you own? It's going to have 3 different options instead of just the 2. And I can choose, for example, dog, and then another question is going to pop up. And this actually is another question in and of itself. It's a caption question where I just put in this little emoji here. But so this question pops up, and when I answer this question, it's going to open up yet another question. So it's multi-level, and it's going to be the same kind of multi-level for each of these options here. So there are a number of different questions here. So it's a little bit more complex than the original example, and I'm just going to show you what that array of objects would look like here. So again, it's just an array with this time a number of objects, and each of those objects is going to look very much like the object that we just went over. So once we've got this script here, when that runs, it's going to basically push this variable, this array of objects, to the browser window, from where we can pull it into another piece of JavaScript that we're going to write right now. And I like to write that in an S51 tag, so a page builder reusable page. And I will show you what that looks like up here. Let's see. So that one I called reuse conditional event questions tertiary. You could probably come up with a less complicated name than that. But the content for that is going to just be this script here. And you know what? I'm actually going to show you, instead of showing to you in this, I'm going to show it to you on my GitHub account. And here is the link to my GitHub account, and all the code that I'm going to be going through here is also up there. So I'm going to cruise through this code because I won't really have time to go through it in detail. But if you want to check it out at some point, this is the link that you can go to. So here is my GitHub account, and I'm going to go to events, conditionally show, and that is going to be this code here. I'll show you just briefly how this code is going to work. So when we first get to this code, it's going to, as soon as somebody loads it, DOM content loaded, loads the page, it's going to pull in that data that we just created in the edit event information section of the admin area. It's going to pull in that variable, that array of objects, and it's going to start off by just looping through each of those objects and sending all that information to a main function called show conditionals. And that show conditionals is basically the rest of this code here. So I'm going to jump up to where this this main function called show conditional starts and show you kind of how that works. So for each object, it's going to fire this function, and when this function starts, it's going to first create a couple of arrays here. It's going to take in all the show trigger options, which are the options that if somebody clicks on or selects, will show or hide the various questions. And it's going to take in and make it an array called show. It's going to make an array of each of those called show trigger options, and it's going to similarly make a hide trigger options array of all those particular elements. And immediately it's going to take those 2 arrays of elements and come down here and set and loop through those and set a, let's see if I'm in the right spot here. Yep, it's going to loop through, and for each of those set an event listener on that element. So for each of those, it will loop through and run through this function, which sets an event listener, which is going to be a change listener, which will say when somebody clicks on one of these options and therefore changes the value, yes to no, dog to cat, whatever it may be, it's going to then fire this function, given all the current information from the element that was just clicked, just changed. It's going to take that and shoot it up to this function called get questions to show. And this get questions to show function right here is basically going to take in all that information and is going to run it through a list of conditionals, of conditions basically, and return a certain array of the IDs for the questions, which, given this set of conditions, should show. So, for example, if the condition is on change is true, and the condition show or hide here is show, then it's going to return an array that has all of these elements in it. And just briefly, I will tell you what these elements mean so you get an idea. So current trigger would be the element here for whichever thing you're clicking on right now. This is that particular question. That's the current element. And the current show queue IDs will be an array of all the IDs of the elements that are going to be shown once I click on this. So this question here will be the one that's shown when I click on this current question. And one that's a little bit trickier is this variable here called trigger and show queues in path. And that is going to be an array of all the elements that came in the path before this element was clicked. So, for example, I click on cat, and then I click on dry, or what kind of cat food. Then it's going to show all those things that I just, that question, the show questions, and it's also going to show the current one, but it's also going to continue to show everything that came before. So every question I clicked on before, you don't want the previous questions to be disappearing once I click on one of these. So that is the variable that's the array of question IDs in this particular array here. So it's going to take all these arrays and that just ID number here and create a new array from all of those. And it's a slightly different one for each set of conditions here. And it's going to return those in a variable called all queues to show. I'm going to take that all queues to show and push it right down here to this new function called hide or show appropriate queues, which brings in that variable here. And it's going to go take that information here. But first, when I come to this this function here, the first thing it's going to do is actually run through an array that was created earlier called all conditionals. And that is going to be the array of all the questions here, every possible question that has a conditional value on it. And it's going to hide all the questions. It's going to hide them all by doing this. It's going to take that element and add a class to it called hide question and remove a class called show question. And those classes are CSS classes. And those, you could probably guess, the hide question has a display value of none, and the show question class would have a display value of block. But it's going to add that hide question to all of them, therefore hiding all those questions. So first it hides all the questions, and then it's going to come through here and create from all these IDs and the show queue IDs, create DOM element selectors and of just the elements that are now to be shown. So once it's hidden all the DOM elements, it is going to create the DOM elements of the elements to be shown and show those elements. So it's only going to show the elements that are supposed to be shown by going through this little set of functions here. And then it's going to come down here and loop through those and do pretty much the opposite of what we just did in the hiding all the things. It's going to add a show question class and remove the hide question class, which is going to hide. It's going to show. So once it's hidden all these, it's going to show the correct ones. And that is basically how that show conditionals is going to work. So that's the first little hack that I wanted to show. I guess maybe I should ask if there are any questions at this point, but let me see if I know how to figure out if anyone's asking questions. And show chat. It's like, okay, if nobody has any questions right now, then I'm going to move on to the next thing that I wanted to show. All right, since I'm moving in reverse order here, I'm going to go to make discount codes in TeamRaiser case insensitive. So you've got a TeamRaiser here, and somebody comes in to register for that TeamRaiser. You come to the registration page, and there's this enter discount code field here. And by default, that enter discount code field is case sensitive, which is kind of a problem because some people come in there and they don't know whether their discount code is all uppercase or all lowercase or maybe a combination of the two. And it's not going to work unless you get the code, the casing right on this. And so we've kind of run into a few problems with that. So I thought it would be kind of nice if when somebody entered a discount code here, whatever they entered, when somebody clicks out of this field, it would just change it to all caps. So then if they click on next step, for example, it would change it to all caps. If they click outside here, or if they click into another field, it's going to just change that to all caps. In which case, the only thing you need to really remember is to, in the TeamRaiser manage discount step here, just make sure that all of your discounts are all in all caps, and then it will work no matter what casing the person here types in. So just a little bit of code, well, simple code actually, that makes that work. And again, it's going to be in my GitHub account. I'm going to look at here under TeamRaiser, make discount codes non-case sensitive. It's just this little piece of script here. And if I can copy that into my TeamRaiser customized pages, participant options, I can just paste that code right in there, save it, and then it will work as I just demonstrated here. Let me just go quickly through what that code does. Again, it's very simple. As soon as somebody loads the page, it is going to find that element, that field, the discount code field, and it's going to add an event listener. It's a blur listener, which means it will fire when somebody clicks outside of the field. And as soon as somebody clicks outside of the field, it's going to just take that field, take the value, and change it to uppercase. And that is how that works. Again, let me see if there are any questions on that. I'm thinking probably not, so I'm going to move on to the last little demonstration here. I can find my cursor. There we go. Okay, it is create one-click donation forms in one quick step. So this is just a little one. It's not going to save you a whole bunch of time, but it's just kind of fun and cool, and I wanted to show it just because it's kind of tricky and fun, and it uses S tags and I don't know. So anyway, if you've got your traditional, say you've got a donation form like this. This is one of just our classical donation forms, and lately we've been adding, to go along with those donation forms, these cool Blackbaud checkout one-click forms that are very handy for mobile device users, and they can use Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, etc. So we wanted to try to make most of our donation forms have a correlating one-click donation form to go along with them. Now, to make these one-click forms, really what you do is create a page builder page for each of these. And so here I've got a list of a bunch of page builder pages that I've created, and each of these represents a one-click form. And I've named them all very similarly, as you can see, one-click underscore, and then the ID number of the regular donation form that they'll be associated with. And that naming convention there is going to be kind of important to the process here. I'll explain that a little bit later. But let me just show you first what the main, how these one-click forms function really in code. And it's really quite simple when you break it down. So all this code is just kind of extra styling and content. But the main part of a one-click donation form is the E1300 code. So at its base, an E13, or actually it could be an S1300 tag. So the S1300 tag is what brings in all the donation form information. So let's say I have a donation form 2222. I just put in this S tag here, 1300:2222. That would pull in almost all of the nuts and bolts of this donation form here. In fact, I think it would pull in pretty much everything you're seeing there. This is all the other code that was in that thing, and the rest of this, the important parts here really are the S1300 tag. So I was thinking, if I'm going to be going through and making a bunch of these donation forms, these basically pages, and naming them, go back to those pages here. Internet's running slowly all of a sudden. Okay, so here we're going to be making these pages and naming them. I may as well name them with the ID number in the name. Then maybe I could figure out a way to pull in from the URL of the one-click form, which is created by this name here, pull that into the E1300 tag, and use that instead of having to go into the code and type in the donation form ID number into each piece of code. So what I figured here is that I could pull in this URL that's created when I make this new one-click form, and take and parse out the ID number from that and use that in our code. And what's kind of cool, I think, is I used the E130 tag. And what I'm thinking is kind of cool is that I learned about the E130 tag really last year from Jeremy Reynolds' presentation, where he talked about the E130 tag, which is the reverse Polish donation or reverse Polish notation tag, which is a tag which can evaluate mathematical expressions or kind of parse through or process string expressions, which is what we're going to do in this case. So he also, in his presentation, talked about this tool here called the E130 PAL, which was created by Eduardo Garcia. And this is what I used to come up with the E130 tag that actually eventually parses out the ID number of the donation form from this URL. I'm just going to quickly show you kind of how that worked in this E130 PAL tool. So I figured that I would first set this variable here in this tool called S8, which S8 tag is the S tag that pulls in the URL from the current page that you're on in a TeamRaiser. So if I set that tag in this example equal to URL of the one-click page that I'm looking at, I can then figure out over here the E130 tag, all the expression that's required to pull from this out, from this string here, these last 4 digits here out. And I'm not going to go through the entire steps, all the steps that I went through to create this kind of monster of a 130 tag that I eventually ended up creating. But again, you can see that in my GitHub account if you want. It's going to be here under donation forms, one-click donation forms, one-click ID num, and it's going to be just this here down at the bottom, this E130 tag. I'm going to pull that out though and just show you kind of how that works in the E130 PAL. So if I paste that expression here and click evaluate, you can see that this tool here starts going through this string here, and with each step it starts narrowing it down until finally it gets down to this last step where it's just got that ID number that I need. So with that, I know that I can just grab the ID number that I need from the URL that I'm looking at, of the page that I'm looking at. And I can take that into my code here. And instead of having to go in and type the number into the code and type the number of the donation form, I can just paste that E130 tag in there, and then it will automatically pull that donation form ID number into this code. So that allows me to make it very easy to, every time I want to create a new one-click form, just come in here, grab one of these, copy, and change the name to one-click underscore, and then the number of the donation form that I want to associate this one-click form with. Save it. It's not going to save right now because I've already done that one, but save it and publish it, and then you have that new one-click form that already works and pulls in the ID number that you want. So you can kind of just tell someone within 15 seconds, maybe, you can create a new form just by copying, renaming, saving, and publishing, and you've got a new form. So I thought really it was kind of cool for a few different purposes. It does make it a little bit quicker, but it also just kind of fun to use some S-tag trickery. And that is basically my presentation. Does hey, I see Jeremy's here. Thank you for the presentation last year. Comes in handy. Any questions? I think I'm just supposed to be looking at the chat here to see if anyone's asking any questions, I guess. One new message. Yeah, I'm sure there's a better way to do that E130 tag. I kind of just hacked it, but I still kind of wanted to show it. Yes, let me show it. Let me share that GitHub link again. Let's see. That is here. Let me just pull this out of here, actually, one sec. Okay. Oh, gray background in the editor. Yeah, that's just that's just something I put into the FTP CSS codes. I've made a few of those little changes that make things a little bit easier. Dark mode.